Համասկայնի Հարություն Մանուկյան քրադարածը և Sarah Corning for Genocide Education-ը գազմագերբած էին Գրքի շնորհահանդես, Pages from Armenian-Canadian History, a compilation of the Georgetown boys' Ararat monthly newsletters. Ձեռնարկը տեղի ունեցավ Կիրակի Նոյեմբեր 12-ին Հայ Կեդրոնի սրահին մեջ, որբե մասեր կներկայացնենք ցեզի.
My name is Harut Manugyan. On behalf of the Sarah Corning Center for Genocide Education, ACC Toronto Kalatsor Chapter, and the Armenian National Committee of Toronto, it is my sincere privilege to welcome you all to the culmination of a project that has been years in the making. The Ararat Monthly and Ararat Ansateft were newsletters published by the Georgetown boys and their Armenian teacher, Aris Alexandyan. Survivors of the Armenian genocide, these boys and young men created their own publication to practice their English and Armenian, to share their artwork and short stories, to spread news about life on their orphanage farm, and to keep connected with Armenians around the world. At its peak, they had 2,000 subscribers in more than 30 countries, and they released 15 issues in English and at least 30 in Armenian between the years of 1926 and 1929. They are presented today in a brand new compendium, Pages from Armenian-Canadian History, the Ararat Monthlies, 1926 to 1929. I want to recognize that we are fortunate today to be joined by descendants of the Georgetown boys, and for those descendants who wish to do so, I'd ask you to please stand to be recognized.
As you've heard, Pages from Armenian-Canadian History has been 10 years in the making. It came together through a group effort that included many people, but especially, as you've heard, Gabi Batigyan and Salpi Garabedian. The search for issues of the Ararat newsletters involved emailing, calling, and visiting nearly 100 people and institutions in 5 different countries. Ultimately, we found 45 issues in Canada, Armenia, Austria, France, and the United States. 45 issues when we'd previously known of only about 30. All available in one place, which hasn't been the case in a century. Available now to everyone in the world. Pages from Armenian-Canadian History is the fruit of this long, steady labor.
The first editorial published in Ararat by Vahe Alexandyan. A group of boys, 12 to 13 years old, will work together and publish it. This will be another school for us, where we will mold our thoughts and express them. In its columns, we will tell how the Armenian boys should live in Canada and what should be their motto. Through the medium of this paper, we will teach one another how to live in this good and beautiful Canada. We will tell one another to respect and love the people of this country, who have such kind hearts to care for us, to learn the laws of this country and learn its ways.
In this editorial, we would like to give the names of the places to which Ararat goes in the greatest numbers. There are many cities in Ontario fighting hard to lead the list. Guelph was the champion for last month, but Toronto is leading now. London is a close third. Galt, Hamilton, Kitchener, New York, Detroit, Boston, and Montreal follow in the order named. By next issue, we would like to announce a noticeable change in this lineup. Ararat thanks Miss Blanche M. Hutt of Toronto, Miss C. M. Bauman of Montreal, and Ms. Bill of Guelph for their extra contributions.
From them, we understand something about the quality of the texts published in Ararat. They are written by boys and teenagers and reflect the cadence and gradual development of their English. This was a language they had only just begun to learn. We understand that the newsletters were circulated among the supporters of the Georgetown project, and that these supporters included Armenians and non-Armenians alike. We can really divide the newsletter's written content into 2 categories, fiction and non-fiction. The fictional pieces were diverse in terms of genre. They included stories with a moral message, such as one about being patient and another about standing up for your friends. They included wonder tales. There's a story about a family of princesses, for example, and another about a magical key.
He held in his hand a glorious-looking leg of turkey, which was covered with black, shiny, and uneven skin, and gave it the appearance of walking on its claws. When my companion saw me, he said, "Come and see, come and see." I ran to him. He held the upper part of the leg. With a motion of his right hand, the 4 claws would open and close like the fingers of hand. I was surprised and admired him. How could that leg without any life in it move?
Many of the fictional pieces were published in the language in which they were written, but others were marked translated from Armenian or Tarkmanets Anklierene, translated from English. Some of the texts are hard to categorize as either fiction or non-fiction. Either they were one or the other, and we just can't tell anymore, or they combined elements of both. These were the stories set during and immediately after the genocide. Their dominant themes were victimhood, vengeance, and heroism. We have stories about a protagonist called Mardigovan, one about Haigaz of Sivas or Sepastia, and another about the siege of Aintab in 1920 and 1921. It's interesting and important to wonder to what degree these texts reflected the experiences of their authors. To what degree did the authors combine their own truths with truths heard from other survivors?
My New Home in Aramosa Township by Hachi Karajan. I am an Armenian boy. 4 months ago, I went out from the Armenian boys' farm home to a new place at Aramosa Township at Mr. Hindley's. It is a great happiness to me that I am learning how to farm. Mr. Hindley is a good gentleman, and Mrs. Hindley is very nice. They have a little boy, Bruce, about 3 years of age. I love him as I would love my own little brother. They are very good to me. I'm going to tell you about my new farm. I get up every morning at 5:30, do the chores, milk the cows, feed the cattle, and clean the stables. Then I get my breakfast. I must get ready for school.
Այս դպրոցը նախկինեն ավելի լավ գազմագերբված է։ Մեր գողմերը բավական թիվով հայ դղակ կան եւ շատ անգամ զանոնք տեսնելու գերտամ։ Ոմանք լավ դեղեր ունին եւ ոմանք քեշ, բայց մեծամասնությունը քոեն իրենց միջավայրեն։ Իմ դեղը սա բավական լավ է։ Երեկուգես մղոն հերու եմ իմ դպրոցես։ Ալ օտերը ծրդել սկսան, հավանաբար գանտ բաբան պատրաստությունները վերջացուցած եւ ջամփա ելած է իր դարեգան բդույթը սկսելու համար։
Scattered across southern Ontario, some had the good fortune of being near their old friends or making new friends easily. Others didn't. Their most consistent complaints revolved around 2 issues. First, some wanted to go to school but weren't allowed to. Second, others wanted to leave school or to leave farming and were forbidden or pressured not to do so. The adults in the Armenian Relief Association of Canada and the United Church of Canada were also pushed and pulled between the poles of turning the boys into non-Armenian or barely Armenian Canadians and non-Canadian or barely Canadian Armenians. These tensions all come out in the book we're talking about today. Sometimes they're right there on the surface. Sometimes you have to read between the lines to catch a glimpse.
Or պիտի քա, երբ այլևս ամենքս ալ իրար մե պիտի փաշնվենք։ Այս աշխարհը երազմն է արդեն։ Եվ չանգությունը իր ուրախ պահերով գուքա։ Եվ սակայն ժամանակներ գուքան, երբ ալ անոնք միայն հիշադակներ եղած գլան։ Բայց սիրելի եղբայրներս, որքան որ ալ փաշնվենք իրար մե եւ կյանքի մեջ զանազան ուղղություններու հետևենք, եկեք չմոռնանք մեգս մեկ։ Չմոռնանք մեր եղբայրական գաբը եւ այն ավելի նվիրականորեն ամրապնդենք։
So, what does someone do with a big tome like this one? I think that depends on the reader's preference. One could start at the very beginning and read all the way through, seeing how the Ararats and their concerns changed over 4 years. You could open a page at random and read a couple of issues, dropping yourselves into a point in time 100 years ago. Or you could take a small passage and think on your own or with others about how it relates to the present and what it reveals. And what does that say about how much things have changed over the last century, or how little?